Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Solano College Sports Network for a brand new edition of the Tuesday Swoop. Here with me today, Zay Randle, Blake Molina, Garrison Glenn. I'm Cameron Harrison, and we're going to get into some NBA talk, primarily with the playoffs, some losers and winners from the conference semifinals. Now heading into the conference finals today, Game 1 with the Lakers and Nuggets. But first off, we'll start out with the bad news, the losers of the conference semifinals. And one that hits home a little bit, the Golden State Warriors. Garrison, I'll go to you first. What would you just recap this Warriors season? Maybe what was the problem? Why couldn't they get over the hump?
Well, interestingly enough, Kerr just talked about, literally today, saying that the punch that Draymond threw at, and connected with Jordan Poole before the season started was a main reason why they were so, disconnected throughout the entire season. I think that was a big problem as well. And then them losing 30 games on the road was not cool. And then them having the best one of the best home records, and that was very odd. But I guess they spent all that they possibly could in terms of winning against the Kings, mainly because they're small. They're a very small team in terms of height wise, and them just being able to rebound the ball. That was a big lack of rebounding, and so. Going into this Lakers series, in the back of my mind, I had a feeling the Lakers were going to probably win, but I wanted to pick the Warriors not only because it's my favorite team, but it's because that they were kind of riding on the momentum of the Kings series, and so that they might be able to, do something. But I wasn't at all shocked at the loss. The Lakers were the better team, and which is why I'm very high on them. And we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Blake?
I just kind of have to agree with Garrison, and it's crazy to say against the Warriors, the defending champs, and I think true basketball fans kind of forget about that. But the Lakers were the better team. They just, we talked about it, the trade deadline, they made the right moves. They got spacing and shooting, and they got a little bit of length, adding Jared Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura throughout the season. Different guys they've brought in, just different guys, and it's just kind of worked. Even smaller signings, Dennis Schroeder,
right.
Austin Reeves kind of, keeps taking those steps. You were talking about it off camera. He's going to get it back.
Bro, he's getting it back.
I think it'll probably be an overpay, but the man deserves it. So, you know what?
It's not overpaid then.
No. I'm saying someone's probably going to overpay what his market value is, but he deserves it. That's what I mean. That's what I mean by that. But for Golden State, it's kind of weird for them, like I said, because, they won the championship last year, so kind of their season's ending early. But, then go in the offseason, really decide what they need to do. Bob Myers says he's going to take time away. I'm sure he'll be back. That's not too much to really think about. Draymond Green's got that player team.
Yeah, player option.
Player option to deal with. There's been kind of talk about Poole. I don't think anything's going to happen with that. But I think the Lakers they look good, and I think they're going to be really battle tested against the Nuggets, but I think that's I think it's a good matchup for both teams, but we'll get into that later.
Lakers Warriors, final any words on that series? Obviously, you had the Lakers to win it.
Yeah, right. But, they pretty much hit it right on the nail, man. The Lakers are just deeper. They were taller, and like Blake said, when they were able to make all those midseason moves, everything kind of just gelled together at the right time. But, other than that, when you got shooters that can't shoot, Clay got a new nickname. They were calling him Clank Thompson.
Clank Thompson.
Never heard that one. But, JP, he was a no-show.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys don't show up to play, it's hard to win, especially when you're a small team who thrives off shooting.
Right.
When your shooters can't shoot and they're just off, it's going to be hard to win, especially against a deep, tall team like the Lakers.
Yeah, I think it was a tough uphill battle really the whole time. Losing Game 1, and then honestly just this whole year, it's not the regular Warriors team we've seen for the past decade really, with like you were hitting on, Garrison, the road losses were definitely a big red flag heading into the playoffs, and being a 6th seed, it's a pretty low seed to try to go against, and going 7 games with the Kings, that really drained the Warriors, I think. But overall, like Steve Kerr hit on it at the end of the season, some of the other players, I just don't know if it was necessarily a championship roster. They pressed as hard as they could and made a good run at it, but yeah, it's tough because the height was definitely a disadvantage, but Looney got sick, Clay wasn't hitting shots. Jordan Poole was nowhere to be found. So it's tough because I do think there was a world where they could have moved on past the Lakers if Clay and Poole were on, if Looney was healthy, if GP was healthy, but at the same time, a lot of credit to the Lakers because they just outplayed the Warriors. And honestly, I think the Kings might have deserved that spot over the Warriors. I think the Kings would have given the Lakers maybe a better run for their money than the Warriors.
I definitely agree. But when you say you don't think that team was built for a championship, isn't that like basically the same team that won last year?
I would say yes and no. I mean, I think the depth wasn't quite the same. There's a lot of weird movement. I mean, Wiggins was out for like 2 months, so he wasn't the Wiggins we had last year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Wiggins was second or third best player on the team, right? And last year, and although Clay had a full season getting his legs under
overall,
him.
it was pretty much the same core. Even coming off the bench, you guys added DiVincenzo, which I thought was that was great for you guys.
I think physically, yeah. Mentally, maybe not. Maybe just probably because of what happened to start the season off, especially you coming back from, you know what I'm saying?
I get you right there in that aspect.
Physically, they are the same team. But in here, it's probably not
If Poole, Clay, and Wiggins played like they did in the last year's playoffs, I think the Warriors make it out of the first round or the second round. So yes, physically, like they basically were the same team, like on paper, but they didn't play the same. The chemistry just didn't seem to be the same as it was last year.
I don't think that locker room was ever going to be the same after that incident.
I don't know about that.
I mean, Jordan Poole already they asked him what's his relationship like with Dre. He said it's strictly basketball and business.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there, that answer itself is saying a lot. It just coming inside the locker room. You feel me?
It's very telling.
I mean, and then you got the aspect of the older core Warriors who already got 3-4 championships together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're kind of got a divide between the younger roster who may have been there last year, who were there to see that incident. I mean, there's going to be a divide between that older core and the younger guys. I mean, that's just how life is. You know, you kind of gravitate towards the guys who, are close to your age and kind of have the same viewpoint of things. You know what I mean? So I mean, like, I think that locker room is forever going to be changed.
I would disagree on that. I think, there's been talks about the Warriors dynasty being over for the last 4 years now. Since KD got hurt.
Yeah, when they lost KD.
I think
once we
they're
lost KD and Clay.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, but I think it's a similar turnaround now. I mean, this is the first time this team in the Steve Kerr era hasn't made it to the finals when they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, we lost in the second round, but that doesn't mean you blow it all up just because we didn't go to the finals. Because really, it's a testament to how great this team has been. The fact that it's been 8 years since we've not made it to the finals once we make it into the dance. So I don't think they blow anything up. I was a little disappointed with Steve Kerr and the fact that I don't know what's going on with Jonathan Kuminga.
Thank you. I was saying that too.
But the fact that JaMychal Green was getting minutes over him, I didn't like that at all. So I hope, and obviously right after the year, Kuminga's gonna look around and try to try out for other teams in the summer or try to get traded or something. But I don't think that's gonna happen. First of all, he has no leverage in that. But also, I think he's gonna be a bigger part of the team next year. Anyway, moving on. Phoenix and Denver. The Suns losing 6 games. They get blown out back-to-back years on their home court in Game 6. It actually, we'll get into it later, but it leads into Monty Williams losing his job, who is the most winning coach in the last 3 years. So Phoenix just doesn't have enough depth. Is that the right summary? It just didn't have enough defense to beat Denver. Not a good matchup. Ayton against Jokic. What were your thoughts on that?
Chris Paul going down is that impacted the series majorly. But besides that, they still never had enough depth. They still never had enough defense. And when you're playing against a team like the Nuggets, who I think is probably the most complete team in the league, them and the Lakers, you're gonna need defense because the Nuggets got defense. And if it comes down to a shootout, whoever got the most defense in the back end of the game is probably gonna pull it off.
The thing too is Denver has the shooting as well because Phoenix. You look at KD and Booker, obviously great shooters, but they had to drop 80 to 90 points combined every game just to make it a game.
Barely win.
Just to barely win and make it a game. And they're playing 40-plus minutes a night. Versus Denver, they don't have, obviously, the same namestay guys, the household names like Chris Paul and Devin Booker and KD, but Jokic and Murray and Gordon. And, they're just they're just way deeper and honestly a better overall team.
In this situation, the better team won, I think. It doesn't always happen, but I feel like this particular instance it did. I was very high on the Suns once they got Kevin because it's Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have to start thinking about how he can't do it the same way that we thought he could. In terms of just being able to plug him in and being like, boom, you're here to play and we're expecting you to go to the championship. We can't expect that from him anymore. And what we just saw showed that. The lack of scoring on his end towards the end of the games, the last two games, games 6 and 7, were kind of alarming to me for sure in terms of like their future. But also when they fired Monty Williams, I don't think he deserved that. I get it, you lost in the second round, but I don't think he was he's always like when coaches get fired, they're usually the first person to go.
But they're the scapegoat.
They're the scapegoat, exactly, and it sucks, and I don't think he deserved to get fired. But in terms of Denver, I think they did what they were supposed to do. They're very good shooting, 3-point shooting team, and then with their defense, they locked them up. They did what and then for that last game, that was crazy. Why did Devin Booker go from having 40+ points and then having that performance? I was I was very confused as to how they shut both of them down throughout the game. But yeah, that's how I feel about the Suns.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Denver kind of just was the better team, as crazy as that is to say,
Right.
because the other team had Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. Unfortunately, Chris Paul wasn't fully healthy, but, I mean, you can add his name to the list. The Suns, to me, though, kind of going in the offseason, are, I think, kind of probably the easiest fix out of all the teams that are going to probably get eliminated in the playoffs. I could be wrong at the end of the day. The thing holding them up is the DeAndre Ayton issue. If they get rid of him, not only does that get rid of the drama, but that'll clear up a lot of cap space. Getting rid of Chris Paul helps too. You can use, I mean, that's, if I did my numbers right, I mean, that's north to almost 60, 70 million you're clearing off. If you get rid of those two guys alone, I mean, you can build around Booker and Durant. You can bring in the depth that they need, some new starters, maybe, good quality starters, but not, making $35 million a year.
Right.
Obviously, besides Durant and Booker, they deserve that money. But, the other guys and stuff like that. But Denver just kind of showed out. I mean, Jokic showed why he's always in the MVP running. I mean, unfortunately, they lost when he dropped that 53-point game. 53? Yeah. So, that was kind of like one of those games where, you want to – when someone goes for that amount, you expect them to win. You want to see them win. And that was kind of the only real, kind of bummer for the Nuggets. And I thought, well, if they can do that and Jokic drops 53, I think the Suns have a solid chance. But after that, the Nuggets just kind of went storming in. And, again, it just kind of goes back to the Suns. It's the depth. I mean, I agree with you. Monty Williams didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
He did not deserve to get fired. He was the unfortunate scapegoat. And then kind of the other thing, too, and – I don't want to cause controversy, but, Durant was only there 2-3 months. And I agree.
He got hurt, too. He got hurt.
And I will agree with a lot of what the analysts say, too, and what they were saying when he got traded. He is probably one of the greatest plug-in players. Because, I mean, you can plug him in wherever. But you're still going to a whole new team, and you're only getting 2 months. Not only that, you're hurt, like you said. And it was a freak accident. I mean, dude slipped. That was
weird.
That was a whole nother thing. But so you have to learn a playbook, all that stuff, and then you're also gearing up to go to the playoffs compared to the Nets where they were kind of holding on, struggling with all their stuff. You didn't know what was really going to happen. You're going in and then you're going to the Western Conference. No, I mean, we talk about the East, how it's kind of weaker, and the East has gotten stronger the last couple years, but you're still going into the Western Conference where it's anybody's game. So, I mean, you were going into an unfair advantage. But at the same time, I mean, you are Kevin Durant. You are potentially the greatest plug-in player of all time. So it's kind of I guess it's kind of a coin toss how you take that. But I don't think the Suns really should be panicking too much. I agree the Monty Williams thing was kind of an over-exaggerated move. But other than that, if they get rid of Ayton, I think they're going to be okay. I think they have the best chance to recover from this.
I think it's interesting because, for a long time, I think really since, the big three Celtics and then LeBron with the Heat, there was this super team. You need to get it done with the super team.
Right. Yeah.
Unless you're if you have a super team, you're going to be super dominant. And really lately we haven't seen that succeed since the Warriors with KD. And well, it'll be interesting to see if that sort of process fizzles out, if guys, rather stay loyal or win it through the draft. I still think that a lot of teams need to win it through the draft, you need to draft franchise players and be able to have them for longevity. But anyway, that's a whole different discussion. So moving on to the East, Philly and Boston. So Boston gets it done in 7 games. Philly had a chance in Game 6. Boston was able to win on the road. And then they go home and do it in Game 7 in a blowout fashion. A lot of, Tatum went crazy in Game 7. But, I think he had 51.
He won it in Game 6.
They did win it in Game 6.
He won it in fourth quarter, Game 6.
Yeah, he was struggling.
Where he was slumping the whole game.
Struggling all game in the last, 3?
Yeah.
Went crazy in 2 minutes for 14 points or whatever it was. But
so
I knew that series was over at that point. You want to just get into it? We just get into it right now.
Yeah, well, so obviously the discussion right now, since we're talking about Philly because they were the losers right now. The biggest discussion is obviously Embiid and Harden, sort of their collapse in the last couple games. James Harden didn't score any points in the fourth quarter in Game 5, 6, and 7. After winning Game 1, and we actually did our last episode after Game 1, where the Sixers won on the road without Embiid, and it was like, oh wow, this should be wraps. It looks like Philly's going to be able to go on and win this series, but obviously Embiid was dealing with that knee injury. I don't think he was 100% healthy, and it's so unfortunate because 1, Doc Rivers, who just lost his job today, but 2, once again, Embiid isn't able to be fully healthy for this Philly run, and it just seems like it's year after year. Philly gets there, they have a top seed, one of the best teams, and they get to the conference semis or they get to the first round, and they just can't get over that hump, and it usually seems that Embiid isn't fully healthy for that. So, anyway, any summary for Philly and Boston this series?
Just going off that, Embiid was healthy enough to win that series.
I agree.
Flat out, plain and simple.
I agree. Yeah.
The way he performed in Game 6 and the early stages of Game 7, he was healthy enough to win it. But during the Game 6, when that last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, he didn't touch the ball, no shot attempts. It was a tie game right there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then your best player, the MVP of the league, gets no shot attempts in the last 4 minutes of the game, while the other team's best player is ripping you off for 13 straight.
Mm-hmm.
That was a statement right there. That's when I knew the series was done. And then, to make this thing completely simple, Philly doesn't have any killers. James Harden is not a killer. Embiid is not a killer. Them boys in Celtics, them boys over there in Boston, they got some killers. Miami, they got themselves a killer. Every team in the playoffs right now has a killer. Philly don't got no killers. It's been like that. You could look at Harden's track record.
Right.
His stats is cool. Regular season stats is probably the best I've ever seen. He's probably the best regular season player I've ever seen in my life. But when the game comes down to it and you got to take over, he never shows up. Never shows up. And I'm talking about a player, let's be honest. He got more handles than Kobe. He got more handles than Jordan. He got more handles than Wade. But all 3 of those guys are killers. And that's why they'll forever be greater. But straight skill set, Harden is better than all 3 of them.
It's Harden. Yeah.
Harden is better than all 3 of them. He's not a killer. And that's why, from this day on, you're no longer my favorite player.
Damn. Damn.
I can't blame him though. I get it.
Deep.
I understand though. Because the reason why is because you expecting him to score so much.
I'm sorry, I'm getting over a cold, but oh my god, I can't believe I just heard that.
I get
That's
you.
crazy.
I get you. I understand why. Because a year after year, you see him do what he did in Game 1, and you expect him to step up to the plate and actually get over that hump of trying to be that killer, and he doesn't have it. He never shows up when it's supposed to. He just ain't got it. And I didn't like how in Game 7, Embiid just let Tatum have whatever he wanted. You go back and watch the film. Embiid hit most of those big shots on. I'm sorry, Tatum hit most of those big shots on Embiid.
He looked slow defensively.
He looked very slow. I'm like, dude, you can't block that.
The thing is, but that's part of it's he's been out for a little bit. I don't think he's fully healthy. Maybe he looks healthy, but he's not fully healthy. He was not at an MVP level. But then there's also the fact that, like you said, Harden, I mean, I've been saying this, and that's part of my argument for why, you've been a Harden guy for a long time. Like, he doesn't get the job done when it matters most. And so that's definitely been his one knock, and it's still the same knock for him. And honestly, in some cases now, Embiid too. Like, although he was healthy enough to play in this series for the most part, although he missed a couple games, he was still on the court and definitely had the opportunities to close out the team that just went to the finals. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, we'll talk about it with this next round, but, I mean, that's the biggest round of the playoffs for them because now they get to go play at Miami, who's obviously Boston and Philly are better than Miami. But, anyway, Blake, you have any words on the Philly debacle?
Real quick about Harden, I mean, you guys kind of, I won't backtrack on Harden. Everything that was said about Harden, I agree with. I'm not going to disagree. I guess the question mark for me, and I mean, what's he going to do in the offseason? I mean, is it realistic he really wants to and goes back to Houston? And if he does, why? Why are you going to play with the young guys that pretty much kicked out the coach and got him fired?
They have too many guards.
Exactly. And it's like, we talked about it off camera. You can go to Phoenix. Hey, let him be point guard. But do Phoenix really need another star? No, they need depth. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I wouldn't be against it. That would really put the league on notice, but I don't think that would really be a smart move. I think his best option is for him and Embiid to try to work it out. Sign maybe a 2-3-year contract, and if it really doesn't work out, go get one more bag somewhere else and call it a career. I mean, he's getting up there in age too.
If they want to win, they need to bring in a killer.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Philly has some work to do, and kind of where I'm gonna go. My other point, and I don't want it to happen because he's grown on me as one of my favorite players in the league now. But Embiid this series kind of showed me Embiid's kind of on that Chris Paul trajectory, if that makes sense.
How so?
Good in the regular season, one of the best, if not the best at his position.
Okay.
Doesn't show up and has injuries in the playoffs.
And close out games, really.
It doesn't close out games. And I really don't want to give him that label, and he's young. He shouldn't have that label yet. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, he's kind of getting there. And I want to say one thing, too, and I'm not going to blame this for the series. I don't think the MVP should be awarded in the playoffs. I think you need to do that before because I feel like in a way that messes with the mind. Whether it's hyping you up or you really thought you were going to win. Like, what if Jokic thought he was a shoo-in and then the dude, he lost and then he goes into some weird depression. I mean, the Nuggets get swept or something. Yeah, I mean, you really don't know what really goes on. Embiid could have, it's his first MVP, well-deserved. He should have got it last year. It could have got to his head and he could slack off and say, okay, I'm going to let, P.J. Tucker have a good game or I'm going to let Harden do whatever. It's those type of things. I'm not blaming that solely on why they lost, but I think that kind of needs to be kind of looked at too, especially if the MVP is really battling and know they can go the distance in the playoffs. I mean, what if the roles are reversed? Let's just say Tatum got it. Well, we know Tatum's fighting until June, so that's going to play some part in his mindset, whether he wins or loses it. It depends on the person's mindset, but also what that award's going to do. Is it going to boost your ego? If you lose, is it going to lower your ego type thing?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting. Maybe they give the award after the season, after the NBA Finals, so that it's not really on
They used to.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah,
the NBA award shows.
Right, the NBA award show after the season.
I don't know why they changed it.
Yeah,
because like you said, it can have a psychological effect.
It used to be a much bigger deal too.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now it's not.
And it's something to look forward after the NBA Finals. You'd think the NBA would do that, but the last series we'll talk about, Knicks and Miami. I think we've all seen Stephen A. Smith's rant about Julius Randle and the Knicks. Honestly, I think this is a huge surprise for the Knicks to be in this spot, to make it this deep. I think they upset the Cavs.
Absolutely.
For sure, and this is the deepest they've gone. I mean, they haven't even been to the conference finals since, I think, the early 90s, so this would have been huge if they beat Miami. So, in my opinion, I do think they could definitely move on from Julius Randle.
I do.
They should.
They probably should. The question is, what are you going to get out of him? Who are you going to replace him with? I know it would be interesting. I think Porzingis is a free agent. It'd be interesting if Porzingis goes back to New York. That would be pretty interesting. But let me get your guys' thoughts on this series, New York and Miami.
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
So for the Knicks, I'll just say I agree. I think they shouldn't have been there. They upsetted Cleveland. I'm still kind of shook over that. But I think the main points in the offseason, I don't think – it's kind of like with the Kings. I don't think you can really, walk out with your head down. Yeah, you lost 4-1 in the second round, but let's be real. Were you supposed to be there? I don't think you were.
Yep.
That roster on paper, no. Jalen Brunson began the season – that was considered an overpay. Now it is a steal. Julius Randle probably should get traded. What you can get back for him, I think your best bet is to potentially get some form of picks and just clear cap space and just build around Brunson. Mitchell Robinson's still there. I think Quentin Grimes needs a lot more run. I think he's a nice shooting guard coming up.
I think Obi Toppin can come in and assert himself in the starting lineup too. I like Obi Toppin.
I do too, but I don't know if it's Thibodeau or him. Something's not working, so maybe this is the final year where you give him the run or you ship him out. But it's like with Kevin Knox, where you thought he was really going to be something, and he just wasn't. It just didn't work. That's where I'm kind of going with Obi Toppin, I hope he does.
Kevin Knox was kind of he didn't really prove himself that much in the NBA. He was more of a draft bust, in my opinion. Versus Obi Toppin's he's actually shown he's one of the better shooters on that team.
Yeah,
he's one of the better three-point shooters. He's a high flyer. I think he can defend. He played better than Julius Randle in the playoffs, in my opinion.
I
don't understand why, when he got there, they didn't play him more.
He should have been starting when they got there.
They have Julius Randle,
and
he's an All-NBA player, and he was really good.
Okay.
Last year. Obviously, didn't have a fantastic year this year, but again, Julius Randle is a guy that could drop 30+ easily. The problem is, one, his body language is awful. He carries everything on he carries his emotions on his sleeve way too much. And when things are going bad, he's just a detriment to the team. He's just a bad virus. So, what are your thoughts on the Knicks-Miami series? Zay?
Like I said before the playoffs started, these two teams they reminded me of each other. As in, they're going to fight hard. Mm-hmm. They play tough. And they're always kind of like the underdog. We're not really. But with New York, I wouldn't be too worried about the future. I think they kind of just had a series kind of like the Warriors, where your number 2 and 3 scorers didn't show up, which was for the Warriors, Clay and Poole. And for the Knicks, it's going to be R.J. Barrett and Randall. And these two guys, they're just very inconsistent. But when they're hot, especially Randall. And I think Randall, he can kind of be their Draymond, because you kind of need a guy who's going to lay out all their emotions on the court. And yeah, sometimes it can bring a team all the way down, but when you're going high and everything's going good, that ceiling could be really high for the team, and it can start a wave that just catches flame. And that's what happens with the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
They start to play with fire in their heart, and you could tell. And that's what makes them so great. They're not completely dominant. They've never been completely dominant, other than when they had KD. But you could tell they play with that passion.
Oh, when we went 73-9.
We weren't completely dominant. We lost.
I was gonna say.
We were pretty dominant.
You have to be dominant to win 70 wins, but
73-9. That's pretty dominant.
I get what Garrison's saying, but I think you guys kind of are canceling out each other, because you're both right.
That instance right there sparked the flame, right there. So this could be a situation for the Knicks that may spark a flame for them. They have a killer over there in New York and Brunson.
Mm-hmm.
That boy's
they have a killer. With your 2 and 3 options being R.J. Barrett and Julius Randle, they have enough to go deep every year. It's just whether or not your guys are going to show up.
I didn't even talk about R.J. Barrett. I won't get into that. That's another topic.
R.J., he's progressively gotten better. He's been a consistent. I think he averaged 20 points per game this year. The biggest thing is definitely the efficiency for him. Obviously, he needs to become a better shooter in a league where, as a wing, you have to be a really good shooter. And then, obviously, he just didn't show up in game 5, right? The closeout game. I think he went 1 for something from the field. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he didn't show up. He's young. I do think that they can move on from Randall. I think there's a lot of free agents out there that they could add and maybe can attract now with Brunson and a fueling New York team. Forever it's the Knicks are like, oh, we're going to land KD, we're going to land Kyrie, we're going to land Donovan Mitchell.
No, that's a good point. With the way Brunson been playing and what he showed last
as
year.
As a facilitating point guard, that can attract a lot of guys.
You're going to attract something, whether it's a big name or the right player. They're definitely in a better spot than we were last year, and they have a better chance to attract somebody.
I think a 2 or a 3 would be really good for them.
A 3.
All right, so we're going to move on to the potential and predicting these matchups. Lakers and Nuggets. So as you guys know, I had the Nuggets going to the conference finals. Didn't have the Lakers going to the conference finals, but Garrison, I'll go to you here first. Who's going to the NBA finals out of the West?
I got the Lakers going in 6 or 7. I'm not so sure. I think if the Lakers win game 1, I got them going in 6. I think it all will depend on Anthony Davis's health. Mm-hmm. Just like this last series will. Like, he played healthy, he imposed his will, he did what he's supposed to do. I think I don't think you're going to be able to stop Jokic, because I don't think anyone can right now. But I think you'll be able to put him at bay. And the way that I just saw the Lakers take apart the Warriors, I think they can better defend the Nuggets than the Suns did, especially with the depth that they have. I think there's going to be a role player that's going to like come out of nowhere and like kind of shock some people, kind of like Reeves and then Hachimura the last 2 series. Mm-hmm. I really like Jared Vanderbilt. He's one of my favorite players in the league right now, and that really showed me. I know he got benched, but I like his will and I like his defense. So I think he's going to be able to show up and like surprise a few people. But I got the Lakers coming out of this going in 6 or 7.
I think for both of these series, West and East, I really think any 4 of these teams can go, and it really wouldn't shock. I have my own picks. I am going to go the Lakers in 7. I think it will go a 7-game series no matter who wins.
Okay.
Talking about the Lakers, Garrison, you hit some points. I like Vanderbilt a lot. I thought that was a really good acquisition. I even think the Lakers probably should have given up more to get him, but the Jazz just kind of were giving out freebies. Some guys you talked about are stepping up like role players. We saw Lonnie Walker do it. I'm gonna stick with that.
Who?
Lonnie.
Oh, Lonnie.
Oh, Lonnie Walker.
Lonnie.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Anyways, Walker the 4th. Is
There
that
you
better
go.
for you
Yeah,
guys?
there you go.
Oh my God, I'm not gonna miss this. Anyways, out of those guys, I see him stepping up again. We saw Dennis Schroeder kind of, play that. I don't want to say that Draymond role because he's not, but kind of talking. No,
He's a troll.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Kind of
Yeah.
causing.
Get in your head.
Thank you. Yeah, causing that.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing for this matchup in particular is 2 things. I actually really like the Jokic versus AD matchup. I think that's going to be a fire matchup. I really think people are kind of potentially looking over that. And then the question I have, though, kind of going in for this series is, and not in a bad way to take away from Denver, but
Who's going to guard LeBron?
yes, who is realistically going to guard LeBron?
No one.
Exactly.
No one.
Exactly. That's why
Gordon.
I'm giving the no disrespect to Aaron Gordon. He's been great, but
Once that man puts his head down,
exactly.
there is no one on this planet that can stop him.
Again, no disrespect to Aaron Gordon
Nobody.
because he's an X factor for the Nuggets this whole playoff since the playoffs have started. But that's the big question for me, and that's why I'm giving it to the Lakers: is who's going to guard LeBron?
I wonder who you're going to choose. You like Denver, right?
Y'all know who I got. LA,
Excuse me.
But I think this series is going to kind of be like the Warriors versus Kings series.
Okay.
I think.
How so?
And well,
It's going to go 7?
I think it's gonna go 7.
Okay.
I agree.
Unless the Lakers are able to steal one early on in these first 2 games, then I think it might go 6. But I think because Denver, they ain't lost in the playoffs on the road yet.
Yeah.
At home yet, and the Lakers haven't lost
haven't
at home since March. So
March?
Yeah, since March.
Wow.
So between that, they always gonna protect their home court. So if you're able to steal one on the road, that's gonna be huge in the series. But other than that, I think they're gonna go 2-2, 1-1 in Game 7. LeBron's gonna take over. That's how I think this
That's
series
what you
gonna
meant.
go.
Okay.
That's a fair assessment.
I agree with that too.
I have Denver in 7 in this series. I do really like the Lakers, though. They have a lot of depth. I think the LeBron factor is definitely a big part here, but the other factor, too, for me is Jamal Murray. I think Jamal Murray is going to be able to exploit the Lakers for sure.
He's cooking D'Lo. No disrespect to D'Lo. Either.
D'Lo was really good last round against the Warriors. He definitely surprised me. He showed up in almost every game and actually held his own. I thought he was going to be a defensive liability, and if his offense if he wasn't able to score the ball, then I don't think he was going to be able to stay on the court. But he proved me wrong. He played really well. But all that being said, I just like Denver overall as the better team. I think LA defensively definitely can give. I think they are the best defensive team in basketball.
Yeah.
So they can definitely give Denver some trouble. The question is if AD can stop Jokic.
No.
Because, he's not going to stop him, but being able to hold him to, I don't know.
He can't drop 40 a night.
20 and 15.
Yeah, but Jokic doesn't have to drop 49.
20 and 15.
Because that's the thing, too, with LeBron is this is a different LeBron than what we're used to seeing. A much different LeBron. This is a LeBron that didn't even take a shot in the first quarter in a game 6, and he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to be the scoring and facilitating LeBron that he always is. He can kind of take a step back with this roster, which is pretty scary because I do think he has something in the tank for this series and moving forward because he hasn't had to go full throttle really in the playoffs so far. He cruised by who do you guys play? The Grizzlies, and then didn't have to do a whole lot against the Warriors. He mostly would just show up in the second half, but so that is definitely the LeBron effect is definitely hovering and makes me go back and forth, but I've been riding with Denver, and I think Denver gets over the hump this year and goes to the finals.
I think the key in this series is going to be if the Lakers can stop Jamal Murray, because Jokic is going to get his, AD is going to get his, and whoever's role players are playing better, I think that's what's going to take this series.
That's a big key for me is the role players.
Yeah, and both these teams have really good role players this year.
Really good.
Yeah.
Like some starters and like the benches too. I even will have to barely, but I'll give the Lakers a 1-up on the Nuggets bench, just barely. But I think the Lakers have just a little bit more depth than the Nuggets, bench wise, of course.
Now going to the East, Boston and Miami. I have Boston in 6. I'm going to take the Celtics in 6. What about you guys?
Well, Boston's the team I've been talking about the entire year going to the finals, and I predicted them to beat Philly in 7. I'm not so sure about Miami because we all know what Jimmy Butler is capable of doing, and he's Jimmy Butler. The question then becomes are we going to get the same Jason Tatum that we got for Game 7, or the Jason Tatum that we got for the stretch of the series is one that's a little bit inconsistent, streaky scorer.
Stretch of the back end of this season, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If we get the Jason Tatum that we got from Game 7, they're beating them in 6 or 7, I think. But it's just I think that's the big X factor is which one are we going to get because both teams have depth at this point. I think every team at this point is going to have some depth. You don't get to this point.
They're all deserving.
Yeah, exactly. But I will roll with the Celtics in 6 or 7, just like the Lakers in 6 or 7.
Blake?
What you got?
I'm at a stalemate. I'm going to put the Celtics over. It will be a 7-game series. It's going to be like a Kings-Warriors kind of thing like what Zay was talking about with the Lakers series. I think it's going to be like that. Tatum went for 51 in Game 7. Obviously, he's a star. I think the real question we need to ask, even before this series start, is where are we putting him? Because obviously he's top 5. That's a no-brainer. But is he creeping into that top 5? Or excuse me, top 10 is a no-brainer. Is he creeping into that top 5?
I think if you're top 5, you're a superstar, and I think he's a superstar.
He's a superstar. You're talking about players in the league right now.
Yeah, I have 5 players ahead of him, but he still somehow makes my top 5. I know that makes no sense.
No,
but
I get what you're saying.
He's interchangeable because in no order it's Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, Luka, Steph. And then you can interchange. You can interchange Tatum. You can
I would
interchange.
take Tatum over Luka.
I'm taking Luka out.
I'll put LeBron in there too. I don't know the takeout stuff, but those.
Entire show for this.
Yeah,
no,
that's
we
what I'm
can't
saying.
talk about that.
I don't think we have enough time for that today.
But unfortunately for the Heat, I think Jimmy's gonna start kind of running on some fumes
fumes,
now.
yeah.
Bam's been very streaky and consistent. One game he shows out like he's supposed to. The next game, it's like kind of what the Warriors are doing, riding with, it's time to get rid of Bam, with Jordan Poole type thing. It's one of those things. Lowry hasn't lived up to the contract. He's been good off the bench. The hero injury did some damage. I'm just going to give it to the Celtics. And I think Miami's had a good run, but I think this is where they run out of gas.
Yeah. I think that we might have an all-time classic for these finals for the race to see who gets banner 18 between the Celtics and the Lakers.
Yeah.
And just like Blake just said, I don't think Jimmy got enough gas to do it by himself. The injuries between Tyler Hero and even Oladipo. Remember Oladipo came in and he was playing solid defense.
I
Like, we
forgot
already know
about
what he
him.
can do offensively. He's a 3-and-D guy, but he was playing defense. So I mean, the Celtics got way more depth in his team. They got a lot more firepower, and honestly, it's going to take Jimmy to go for 40 every game, and I don't think he can do that this time around.
It's going to be interesting, and these games will kick off soon. But I think that's all we have for today. We'll have an episode on Thursday breaking down some other interesting things going on in the NBA, and maybe even touch up on some NFL talk as well.
Yes, sir.
Maybe some baseball, but it seems like I'm the only one that wants to do that.
One last.
I'll talk about baseball.
Yeah, I'll talk baseball.
Dang.
One last thing. Good luck to the teams in the draft lottery tonight. Myself, I don't have to watch it for the first time in 16 years. I don't
That's
care.
right. Congrats.
Yeah, I know. I get to join you guys.
Yeah.
I get to join you guys. It's cool.
Yep.
Good feeling.
You joined the West Coast teams not having to watch
I
the lottery.
know. Great. All the California teams actually first time.
Yeah.
Join the rest of us on the couch too.
I've been on the couch longer than you guys,
Yeah.
so it's all. I've been warming up for you.
All right. Well, this conference finals matchups should be very interesting, and we're all looking forward to watching it. Thank you all for watching here us here on the Solano College Sports Network for this edition of the Tuesday Swoop. Zay Randle, Blake Molina, Garrison Glenn. I'm Cameron Harrison, and we will catch you next time.